So we've got a special guest today and a little bit of a different topic than what we've been covering the last few weeks. Just some housekeeping items. Over the last month or two, we've really been focused on marketing software and technology and tools. So the CRM that I'm now using for seller, my homeowner portion of my database and potential sellers like FSBOs, Expired, et cetera, which, by the way, Smarty is coming back on, I think, next week, specifically to talk about using his platform with FSBOs and Expired. So we have that to look forward to as well. We've had special guests, Ryan with Thanks.io for direct mail, Joe with iList. We have talked about PropStream and building targeted audiences and lists with PropStream and generating free leads with Marketplace. So it's been more marketing specific. Today, we have a guest on from Homelight to talk about a program that, for me, the two big reasons why I think you should at least be aware of this is, number one, you can create more conversation opportunities with the existing homeowners in your database, whether they're looking to trade up, downsize or right size, or relocate. This is a program that might help make that easier and more convenient for them, and might help folks that can't otherwise make the puzzle pieces fit together to make it work. So it'll create more conversation opportunities for you, and then also create more actual transactions for you, because the clients that we help with this program, for most of you, it's going to be multiple transaction sides, or at least one transaction side, traditional, and maybe a referral if they're relocating out of the area, something along those lines. And so the topic today is the Buy Before You Sell program, and our special guest is Michael Ruiz with Homelight, which is what makes it possible to help your buyer become a non-contingent buyer of their new property, right? And though we are seeing inventory increase, depending on what market you're in, et cetera. Now, if you do a double thumbs up, apparently Zoom gets fireworks in the background. That's new to me. I knew the one thumb up, give you a thumbs up, and I forget what I do to create balloons. But anyway, so that's the topic for today. Now, I'm going to say up front, and I will repeat myself several times, that for more information, details, resources, I have some PDFs that I can share with you, et cetera. Just comment. If you're in the group and you're watching live, you can comment or just directly DM me, or you can email me or text me. I've got a Google folder that has some resources. And if you have a specific client, I can give you, here's what to do next. And Michael may even cover some of that as well. So one last thing before we get started. We don't have enough people viewing in the group. So please, if you're watching in the group, give it a thumbs up. I don't know if it'll do. There we go. Fireworks again. Give it a thumbs up in the group and let me know if you're excited in the comments. Let me know if you're excited about what we're sharing today. George, thanks for the thumbs up. Okay. With all of that intro done and out of the way, Michael, welcome. Thanks for coming. And oh, by the way, so Michael's going to cover some stuff, but of course we'll do Q&A as well. So if you have questions, if you're in the Zoom room and you have questions, you can drop them in the chat or even raise your hand and I can unmute you or whatever. And if you have questions and you're watching in the live stream, just drop them in the comments. And that's why I'm monitoring them to the right as well. All right, Michael, thank you. Where should we start?
Thank you so much, Josh. I'm actually going to go ahead and share my screen. I got a nice pitch deck to share with everyone as well. Perfect. I'll also send a copy out to you. So if anybody has questions, you'll be able to forward it out to them as well. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. So I'm going to make sure you're all able to see that screen that says Buy Before You Sell Modern Bridge.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh, for having me today. I'm a senior account manager here at Homelight. I primarily handle education on our Buy Before You Sell program. As you can see there, we call it a modern bridge solution. This is a great resource to be able to put your client in a position to do what the name of our program implies: buy their next home first, turn around and sell their departing residence vacant, which, being on the agent side of the transaction, always a good thing to sell a vacant property.
A lot easier, for sure.
Let's take a look at the 3 things that Homelight specifically does to benefit your client. Why we call it a modern bridge solution is Traditional bridges will usually have a monthly payment associated with it. It'll impact their debt to income ratio, make things a little bit difficult there on the lending side to get your client approved. However, why we call ours a modern bridge is because we offer a 0% interest, no monthly payment bridge. So that means that it's designed to not impact your client's debt to income ratio. Now, how we determine how much equity we unlock for your client to be able to use towards their down payment and closing costs for their next home, we do a really simple equation, 70% CLTV. So home value, 70% of that, subtract all liens held against the home, and that's what we can give your client access to utilize for down payment, closing costs for their next home.
Real simple calculation. If their home's worth $1 million, I'm using big numbers because it's easy. The math, I can't screw up. I can still screw up the math, but it's harder to screw up the math with big round numbers. Home is worth $1 million. They've got underlying liens and debt of $300,000. That means they could equity unlock $400,000, just to keep it round numbers and simple. So it's 70% of the value, and obviously you have to subtract any liens or mortgages against the property. Awesome.
And then you've actually brought up a really good point. Value. How do we determine what that value is? One is going to be your actual opinion of value. We're trusting your opinion of value. Obviously, this is your bread and butter. You get to help determine the value of the property. We also do a little bit of a modified AVM on our end. For us, it's mainly a risk calculator that we do on our end. So it's a combination of your opinion of value plus our will help determine that initial value of the home, where we base that 70% CLTV on. So you are actively involved in the process of determining the value of the home. Homelight makes a non-contingent backup offer on the departing residence itself. Right off the bat, that last bullet point here, remove the home sale contingency. That's one of the main reasons for that backup offer, so that your client can make a non-contingent offer on their next home. Now, the second item is actually pretty unique. Now, what we do here is with that backup offer, because it's non-contingent, if your client is purchasing with a conventional loan, a jumbo loan, or a non-QM loan, we are actually able to omit the departing resident's mortgage payments from their liabilities. So that means when your client's getting approved for their next purchase, we're only looking at the new home purchase, not the bridge that we provide, and no longer the departing resident's mortgage. So this is huge in getting your client approved. It's literally as if they've already sold their home. They have funds now. Their departing resident's mortgage is not included in the calculation, and they're able to make a non-contingent offer on their next property. So
Can you, just because I know that this piece of it is what makes it unique, and also maybe it takes a few times to wrap your head around it, us as the agent and even as the lender potentially. So can you just repeat that?
Yeah.
What makes it unique and why it's so powerful?
Yeah, definitely. So that offer that we're putting on the home, again, when your client's in this position, they want to buy first, sell later. Normally, in a normal part where they're taking a traditional bridge loan, they're having their home, their original home, they're having their new home, and they're having that bridge. All of those payments are being calculated against the client. So that
They have to qualify for all of that, which is why so few people qualify for a traditional bridge loan.
Exactly. Now, with our program, because of that non-contingent backup offer, it removes two of those three items. It removes the bridge. Already it's a 0% interest, so it's not impacting, but it also removes that departing resident's mortgage payment. So that means that it's not going to be impacting their ability to qualify for their next purchase, only that new home. So that means higher approval. That means that your client can be able to purchase most likely within the range that they would like to buy in the first place. So really good opportunity, especially, of course, ideally that the client is wanting to buy first and sell later. It's the whole part of our program.
Yep.
These are
Beautiful.
the main things that we primarily do. Now, once you have a client that you believe, you do the simple calculation on your end, you're like, hey, they're in a great equity position to be able to do this. Where do we go from here? Now, from here, we are primarily a lender-facing program. And why I say that is we're not abandoning you. Don't worry. You're still going to get a contact from Homelight. It's just that primarily because we're working on the loan side of the transaction, all of our information that we get gets provided to Josh's side. So what it'll look like is you approach Josh and say, hey, Josh, I have this client. They are ready to go. They're in a great position. Josh is actually going to go ahead with the approval process. So he's going to fill out a questionnaire. Depending on the property itself, right, he's going to fill out that questionnaire. And then with that questionnaire, we're also going to ask for photos of the property. So you on the agent side will actually be provided a link if the home is not already listed. If the home is already listed, we can actually pull photos from the online listing. If it's not, you will be provided a link where you can say, hey, client, I'm going to walk around your property, take some photos. Really straightforward. We're just looking at a picture of every room in the home. And you don't even have to worry about cleaning it. I know a lot of clients get a little like, I got to pick up everything before you come over. Again, we understand that the property is going to be vacant when it's being sold. What we're looking for in those photos is like very obvious structural damage, like the ceiling coming down or a wall's knocked down. That's what we're looking for in those photos.
Sure.
Once we get those two items, that questionnaire from Josh and the photos from your end, 24 hours later, we'll actually be able to get an approval. So pretty quickly, you'll be able to figure out, does this actually work for your client? And this will be, if it doesn't, then you'll be able to quickly find an alternate route. But if it does, right off the bat, you can actually start getting ready to use the program.
Beautiful. Simple.
Let's go through a sample transaction. So I like that you use that round number, 1 mil. We're going to use 500K here for this one. Client owes $250,000. At 70%, we're able to unlock $100,000 for this client. So your clients, given of course that Josh's program, they're able to close very quickly too on their primary purchase mortgage. We can close as quick as 15 days. So if your client, they're driving on a weekend, they see their home, Bill, I could see you right here. Bill, I need to buy this home. I need to make an offer ASAP. 24 hours later after submitting, they're approved. Then they can make their offer for 15-day close if they really need to move fast. Then they close.
The other point I'll make there is that potentially provides negotiating power to the buyer, especially if they're looking at a home that's vacant or a builder that's had a home for sale for a while and it's now the end of the year and maybe they want to unload some of their inventory.
Exactly. Quick closes and removal of that home sale contingency, especially for builders, is what they're primarily looking for. Just makes your client incredibly dangerous with their offers. Now they're making offers, of course, without that home sale contingency. The home that they want to buy in this particular case, valued at $600,000, they're getting $100,000 from Homelight. Josh is going to be providing the $500,000 on that new primary mortgage, and then they're going to close on their next home. Now, once they close on their new property, we're actually going to give them 4 months, 120 days to sell that departing residence on the open market. So that's our timeline. That kicks in once they close on their new property. So then they turn around, they now have 120 days to sell the departing residence with you. So you'll be in full control during the entire time. What I think is really great about this program too, is that Homelight does not interfere between the relationship with you and the client. So that means that you get to determine your own commissions. It's your own listing strategy. Homelight doesn't step in ever and tell you what to do. So you're in full control during the entire time with your client. You're just given 120 days. Now, at this point, once they close on their new home, really Josh's role is done, right? They purchase their new home, they close their mortgage. Now Homelight's going to be reaching out directly to you and you will be assigned a listing specialist on our end. They'll be your point of contact for that 120-day period. You'll be able to lean on us for any support that you may need. You guys are experts, so I doubt that you will, but we'll be there if you really need to lean on to us. And then the goal is to ultimately sell that home. Now, once their departing residence sells, that's of course when you'll get paid your commission and the client will get paid their net proceeds, less any fee to use our program, as well as of course, the amount of funds that we lent to them in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So then they get the net proceeds, you get your commissions, and that's actually the end of the transaction. So we just make this as simple as possible. Buy first, turn around, sell later. Business as usual. It's just that the two processes are flipped. I'll go over the fee in a little bit more detail because there's a couple more items, but very quickly, 2.4% based off of the final sales price. Works the same way as your commission. So whatever they sell the home for, 2.4% of that goes to.
I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, but I also know that you guys have some data, and this will vary by market and home and so forth. But selling the home vacant can, in many cases, lead to it selling for more than the fee. I think the data says 3 to 5%. A vacant home sells for higher than an occupied home. If or when you're having conversations about that fee, now you can't guarantee that, obviously, and there's no way to prove it really anyway. But the point is, it's easier, it's more convenient. The more convenient it is to show a home when it's vacant means you can get more buyers in, you have more interested parties, you have more potential offers, etc. Anyway, sorry.
No, that's perfect. And to give you some actual raw data from our end, as Josh said, 3 to 5% of our clients will sell their home higher than their original listing price. 13% will sell at that fair market value. The remainder of them, it could be a potentially a little bit lower. A lot of the times they're in a position where they want to sell their home as fast as possible. Most clients that we work with just want to get that home out of their hands as fast as possible. So it's really entirely up to the listing strategy there, is what you'd like to do. Now, this is where we are currently active, and we only care where the departing residence is located. So that means that the client can actually purchase into any state that they want to. This is great, especially for clients that are looking to do multi-state transactions. So if you're helping a client get out of the state or come into the state, this is a really good opportunity for them. Now, we do have a couple of places where we're not fully available: Illinois, Florida, and Texas right now. There's some holdups on those states, but everywhere else that's listed here, 100% access.
So with Nexa Mortgage, we're not licensed in New York or Massachusetts, which is two of the ones, and we are in Alaska, but honestly, I've never had anyone interested in Alaska. The point is, it's available almost everywhere. If you're in one of those exclusion or excluded areas, apologies, but there may be other ways that you can strategically help clients or have some unique offerings. And if you want to chat about or explore some ideas on that, I'm always open to that as well.
Now let's talk about communication. I'd mentioned it a couple times here. Up front on the first leg of the transaction, the buy side, it's going to be Homelight working with Josh. On the sell side, it'll be Homelight working with you. Pretty straightforward. And the reason why we operate in this way, why we don't directly call your client and talk to them, is because we used to. And what we quickly found out is that sometimes clients can be a little bit finicky, and they'll ask, hey, what other agents in my area offer this program? Or what other lenders offer this program? Is this exclusive to you? And what we really want to prevent is shopping. So we take a step back. We let Josh and you handle that part of that. So this is a program that you are offering as a joint over to that client. And that way, the only way they get access to it is just between the two of you. So it really does a really great job of solidifying that relationship with you and your client. It also, like Josh had mentioned in the very beginning, this is a great way to get referrals. You have a happy client, they refer them back to you to other clients. So it's a really great way to build that relationship. Let's go over some FAQs. So these are the costs. I did mention that there were a couple items associated with this. So our 2.4% fee here. I know this is a lot of information, but I think it's great, especially when you get it sent to you. It's all clear as day. We do have a 9K minimum. So the way that this works is if the home is valued or sells for $375K or below, the client is subject to $9,000 minimum fee. Anything above $375, they'll be subject to the 2.4. Once we get into higher home values, starting at 1.2 million and above, we can actually get a pricing exception on that 2.4. So if you work primarily in like luxury homes, we can always go, once the home gets approved with our initial submission, we're able to go back and ask for a pricing exception. I usually see it get dropped to like between 2.2 and 2.0. Now, I'm not going to tell you to guarantee that, but just know that we can definitely always go back and get a pricing exception at homes valued at 1.2 mil and above.
Great to know.
Now, these other two items, we do ask for a general home inspection. We do not ask for an appraisal. Now, that inspection comes as soon as they get under contract for their next home. Homelight is partnered with a company called Inspectify, in which the client will order the inspection, but Homelight will pay for it up front. Then the client pays us back from net proceeds. Same with the closing costs. So what's awesome about this is that if your client does not have a lot of liquid funds and all of their assets are held in equity in their home, our program does not ask the client to have any monthly fees associated with it. So that means that they can pull their equity, do whatever they need to do, sell their home, and then take care of the costs. So that's really nice because the client doesn't actually feel it. It all comes from net proceeds when they sell their home. Now that cost for the inspection, $300 to $900, pretty standard for a regular cost of an inspection. Now, if the home is newer, built within the most recent 5 years, we don't ask for an inspection. So that's a way to get out of it if your client has a newer home. And then closing costs, pretty standard because we are providing a loan at the end of the day. $400 to $750 is what we see on average there. Now, next, the equity unlock itself. You heard me say it in the beginning, down payment, closing costs. Really unique way to use this program is closing costs is an umbrella term. If your client wants to do a rate buy down, so if they want to pay some extra funds to lower their rate, they can use our equity unlock to be able to pay that. Or if your client has other debts, maybe a credit card or a car payment that's impacting their debt to income, they can actually also utilize our funds to be able to take care of those as well. As long as it's all taken care of at title when they're paying, then they're able to pay off those liabilities. So it's a really sweet way to help your client get even more approved or to lower their rate if they have enough funds to be able to do so with the amount of equity that we're unlocking for them. Outside of that, if your client needs funds to be able to help with listing prep or moving expenses, your client can pull up to $25,000 or 5% of the home value, whichever is higher, to utilize towards moving expenses, listing prep, staging, whatever they want to take care of. That's how much funds they can pull from the equity unlock itself. So this puts your client into a really unique position to be able to prep that departing residence to make it look stellar than they're already in their new home. So it's a really awesome way to utilize their equity to be able to make that home show ready and also alleviate some costs when moving into their next property. Now, 2 items here. This is actually the number one question that we get, and this is probably going to be the one question that they ask is, you said your program period was 120 days. What happens if the client cannot sell their home in 120 days? What happens in that particular position? This situation I'm going to cover with you is extremely rare. We have done over 3,400 of these transactions, and this situation has happened 10 times. But ultimately, what this looks like is if client cannot sell their home in 120 days, Homelight will act on that backup offer and actually purchase the home from the client. Now, the reason why we buy it in the first place is we live within specific guidelines that allows them, remember in the very beginning, to remove that home, the departing resident's mortgage, from liabilities. Now, we live within those guidelines, so Homelight has to actually come in and purchase the home. But what it looks like from there, it's ultimately just an extension of timeline. So what happens is Homelight purchases the home. We pay off all liens held against the home. Then we turn around and throw it back onto the open market with you as the listing agent, with your already still agreed upon commissions and the client in full control indefinitely. So we don't have a cutoff time there. We don't take over the listing strategy. It's still you and your client. Now, what's really crucial here is that the client and yourself do not make the net proceeds and the commissions respectively until the home sells on the open market. So not when Homelight buys the home, but when it actually sells after the fact. That's when your client will make net proceeds, of course, and that's called our upside guarantee, and then you'll make your commissions. So there are other programs out there that do half of what we do here, and if they meet the deadline, that company will walk away with all net proceeds. Homelight does not operate in that way. We really want our clients that we work with to walk away with all of their net proceeds, and of course, for you to walk away with your commissions. So we don't cut you out of the transaction. You're still involved, and the client is still involved as well.
Can you repeat how many out of the possible number?
Over 3,400 transactions.
A very small percentage.
We do a very robust overview of the program, of the homes that we'll be working with our program. Again, Homelight does not want to buy the client's home. The goal at the end of the day is for them to sell it within 120 days. The less properties on our books, the better.
That it's providing a service to help clients, but sometimes it does end up being that. But as you can see, I don't know the percentage, but that's a very small percentage. I'm not going to do that math live here, but it's a very small percentage of deals. So Cheryl, just to confirm, Cheryl says sell as in closing or sell as in ratified contract in 4 months. So does the property have to be closed like by on the open market in 120 or just under contract to close in that window?
They have to be closed by day 120. However, we are rational. If they are under contract, let's say they get under contract on day 115. We do offer an extension. So if they're going to be closing 30 days from there, day 145, totally fine. We'll give the client an extension to be able to close. But if they do fall out of contract for whatever reason, that's when Homelight will actually step in and purchase them.
Good question.
Yeah,
good question. Thank you. Okay. Further questions. Number one, Michael, if you can hang on for a little bit, we've got some great questions. And then number two, for everyone, we usually will spend up to an hour After we address the questions here, I thought I might show you how to use PropStream to build a list. We talked about using this as a means of creating conversations with your existing homeowner database and maybe clients that you've been trying to help. They're really trying to navigate this buy and sell process. I'm going to show you with PropStream, if you want to build a targeted audience of people that you can then reach out to and maybe present a solution that they weren't even aware of. I'll show that here before we wrap up. Jeanette, or Janet, Jeanette, I think. Anyway, what payment is the seller responsible for throughout this transaction? The current mortgage and the new mortgage? That's a great question.
That is a great question. So for liability purposes, we do omit the departing resident's mortgage, but they will still have that payment. That's why we offer that $25K or 5% of home value. So they can also take care of that departing resident's mortgage and their new mortgage if they really wanted to. So they can distribute that $25K as much as they'd like. Now, again, that payment only exists for that 120-day period on that departing resident's mortgage. So if Homelight does come in and purchase the home, then the client only has their new mortgage to worry about, and the liabilities are away from that departing resident's mortgage. But yes, for that 120-day period, they will have both new mortgage payment and a residence mortgage.
There's no payment or interest on the bridge or the equity unlock, just to confirm.
Correct.
But they would be paying both of those depending on the timing of that. And there may be a way to navigate that. And obviously it behooves the client if you can help them get it sold sooner than later, right? Quicker is better. And there's pricing strategy and other things beyond this conversation that it would be recommended that you employ, right? Strategically pricing it such that you can maximize activity and offers and negotiating power, et cetera. And then what if the house needs some work? Can we work with Curbio for repairs prior to selling? And you may have missed some of this, and there was a lot of information in here. But Michael had mentioned that there is a portion up to $25K that can be used for some other means than just down payment on the new purchase, of which some of that could be work to improve the departing residence, correct? And so that's up to $25,000?
That's correct. And even if they are using Curbio for those repairs too, that's totally fine. We have actually had Curbio work on a few of the homes.
Okay.
The only thing that we ask for those repairs is that they do get done relatively quickly. We don't want it to be like a major project that ultimately would eat majorly into those 120-day period. And what I mean by minor repairs is if there's a few holes in the wall from maybe they hit the hammer a little too hard when putting a painting up, totally fine. But if we're talking like full blown roof being repaired or foundational issues, that's where Homelight will run into a little bit of a problem because those take a while.
And also most likely that would be caught during the picture phase of the process. And if not, then the inspection by inspector. Wendy said, sorry, call came in. Who does the pre-approval letter? So Nexa would, right? So we'd do the equity unlock calculation, and then we'd explore getting them the pre-approval letter for the property that they're looking to purchase. And then the Homelight portion is on the departing residents. Good question there. James asked, does this work for townhomes? Can you use this on townhomes?
Single family homes, condos, and low-rise condos specifically, and townhomes. Low-rise for what we're looking for is anything less than or 4 stories or less. That's what we work for condos.
Beautiful. And obviously there has to be requisite equity.
Yeah.
What's the minimum equity unlock as far as amount?
So this is great because it's actually going to allow me to speak on 2 programs. So that means if your client only needs to utilize the backup offer aspect of it, if they have their own assets to work with, I don't like the name of this program, but this is what it's temporarily named. It's called Bring Your Own Cash BYOC. So bring your own cash instead of bring your own beer. Ultimately, what
That's clever.
It's the backup offer aspect of our program, and this is a reduced fee program. So if your client has their own assets to be able to put towards their down payment, but they still want to buy first and sell later, BYOC is their solution. It's 1.5% versus 2.4%. So if they don't need any equity from Homelight, they can actually utilize this program to get their offer accepted. It still helps with the debt to income ratio by removing the liabilities, and it also helps with removing the home sale contingency. So a really great resource for there if they need to lean onto it. Now for a max equity unlock, since 0 is our bottom, our max that we can do is $2 million. So standard bridge loans, we usually go to $250,000 or $500,000. Homelight can go up to $2 million.
That's great if you're in some of those more luxury, higher price markets. Absolutely. Don asked if we can go over the equity unlock calculation again. So it's 70%.
Yep.
It's 70%. And so the example that Michael had given, $500,000 departing residence, the home that we're selling, $500,000. There's $250,000 in underlying mortgage or liens. That would mean we'd have approximately $100,000, in equity unlock available, 25,000 of which could be used towards moving costs, improvements to the departing residents, etc. And Michael will give me, so I put, and I'll drop it in the Zoom room here again. I have a a Google Drive folder with some resources, but Michael's going to get me the pitch deck from today because I don't know that I have that in there. And if I do, it might be outdated. So I'll get that for everyone who was here and would like a copy of that. We'll certainly get that for you this afternoon at the latest. Patricia asks, I think some sellers would worry that Homelight is doing the home inspection. How do we allay their fears? Homelight isn't doing the inspection per se. They're covering the cost of the inspection and using a third-party licensed inspection company for that. And I would say if that's an issue for the seller, what are they hiding?
Literally doesn't want to say.
This is anecdotal, unrelated to Homelight or lending, whatever. I think we've only, or not even begun to scratch the surface of the issues that we're going to find from people that waived all inspections because things were so crazy in 2022 and now realize that either the seller didn't disclose something or whatever, don't understand the pitfalls of buyer beware. And so the inspection it's not only, it is beneficial to the buyer and the seller, right? It's protecting in many ways both parties. I don't know if you have anything to add there, Michael, but it's a reality of this is a unique program and service. And so that's part of the requirements.
Yep.
Now, can they then, like, Homelight is paying for that or fronting the cost of that? Is that then made available such that if I'm the listing agent, I could include that in my listing so that we can proactively share with buyers, hey, we've already had it inspected. Here's the report.
So if the agent would like a copy of the inspection, pretty straightforward. We'll basically send a document out that says, hey, we've agreed between Homelight and agent to share this inspection over with you. You sign that document and then we send you a copy of it. Yep. Just to make sure that we do everything by the books on our end.
Cheryl asks if they inspect. So it's a full home inspection.
Yes, it is just a general full home inspection.
So in PA, we have a home inspection, a termite, a radon, or whatever, but this is a traditional or typical home inspection.
Exactly. And then I see that right above that, what does bring your own cash program cover again? I was actually typing out the answer, but ultimately it removes the home sale contingency and helps with their debt to income ratio. We're not unlocking any funds for them. So that means that they have their own savings account. So this particular program was created for the clients that are retired and have a lot of assets, but they still want to take a bit of their time to move into their next home first and sell vacant. So usually we see like retired folks will lean onto this program the most, primarily because it helps with their debt to income ratios since they're usually just getting retirement income. They're not actually having a job to qualify for both homes. So this is why this program was originally created, because people are like, I don't need funds from Homelight. I have my own funds, but I still want to buy first and sell later.
Don, there's no adjustment to the 2.5. It's 2.4% or a minimum of 9,000 if the home is less than 375. And there is an adjustment. That's the scenario that there's an adjustment for. If they don't actually need the funds, they just want to be a non-contingent buyer because they've been losing out, because they have that contingency or whatever the scenario may be. James, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Maybe I'm not understanding the percentage. So if they've got 250 grand equity in that example, they get 70% of that, but that's 175,000, right?
It's 70% of the home value, and then you subtract the liens versus 70% of the remaining equity. You'll get a vastly different number.
So $500,000 home, 70% is 350,000. If their liens are 225, it's 125. If their liens are 250, it's 100. If their liens are 200, it's 150.
Gotcha.
So Take
Okay.
the 70% first and then subtract the liens.
Okay. Thank you.
Bill, any marketing pieces we can co-brand? So there are marketing pieces in that folder. I'll drop the link to that folder again. And there are other marketing pieces as well.
Also, actually, we do have a new document that we created last week that allow you to co-brand with an agent. So it'll be you and the agent together. So last week, we actually had a huge update on our program. So Josh is also going to be getting this live, which is pretty awesome. We also launched Equity Boost.
Gonna ask, but then I was like, I don't know if I should put you on the spot or whatever, because I saw it. I think I saw it earlier this week. Okay, I'm glad you brought it up.
Yep. So we also launched Equity Boost. Now, this is available for all the states that we operate in except Texas. Texas is a little bit different once it revolves around unlocking funds there. We are able to get around 50A6 with our standard program, which is pretty awesome for Texas. But Equity Boost is a new program here. And what this does, it will allow your client to actually go up to 85% CLTV versus our standard 70%. So if your client is not satisfied, let's say we get them approved for the 70% and they're like, hey, that's not quite enough, we can actually get them up to 85%. And ultimately, what it looks like to get approved for that is we just need to see asset verification. So ultimately, if they have a 401k, a Roth IRA, anything, even investment portfolio, we just need to see asset verification for the amount of funds that they need to borrow. Really, it's 1.5 times the amount that they need to borrow is what we can go up to. So really simple numbers here. Let's say that your client, we're unlocking $100,000 for them in that scenario that I used before, right? $500,000 home value, they owe $250, Homelight's unlocking $100. Client says, hey, you know what? I actually need $150,000, not $125,000. So in this case, if they need $150,000, the only thing that we ask for is anything above our 70% standard. So anything above that $100,000, we need asset verification for. So since they're asking for an additional $50,000, we need to see $75,000 in assets that they have. It doesn't have to be one asset. So it can be a combination of their investment accounts plus a retirement account, adds up to $75K, boom, instantly unlocked. Client is able to go up to $150,000. So Equity Boost is a really awesome way for your clients to access more funds, given, of course, that we can have asset verification for those additional funds.
Don, did you say there's no credit check for the seller? Not to do the initial, to get the initial equity unlock, but for a pre-approval, which is what they'll need to go and then buy the new home, that would be part of the process. But they could at least get preliminary information and details without a credit check or anything like that. Wendy asks, is there a cheat sheet with all of the fees to the homeowner outlined? Wendy, it is very straightforward. There aren't all the fees. It's 2.4%, unless the sale is 375 or less, then it's 9,000. The only change to that is 1.5 for bring your own BYOC. That is completely unrelated to what their fee sheet would look like for their pre-approval and the purchase, etc. That's just for the Homelight piece of that.
And it's an entirely disclosed separately too from the actual mortgage part of it, because we're tying it associated with the departing residence, not with the new purchase too. So it makes it a little bit easier there for documentation wise for your client as well.
And Wendy said, I get what Don Betts was asking. I don't understand this, but maybe Michael will. What if the buyer goes under contract and beats the sale by selling his place before the close of the new home, never uses Homelight to access down payment? Then what's the cost?
Yep. So there's a couple of scenarios here. The first one is there will be, I'm just going to call it what it is, a cancellation fee. So if the client is utilizing our program, so, and I get what they're asking here, Josh, they're saying, my client, they want to sell their home, they get approved for the program, they make an offer for their next home. Their offer gets accepted, but somebody comes in and says, hey, buyer, I can actually close on your home before you close on your new property. So therefore, they're like, hey, Homelight, I don't need your program anymore. Now, the only situation, there's one very specific situation where a cancellation fee applies. And this is if your client uses our program to get their offer accepted non-contingent in the first place. But then a buyer comes in, closes on time, and they don't utilize our funds. If their client is utilizing our program to get their offer accepted, by removing the home sale contingency, they still utilize the first aspect of our program, which is the bring your own cash part of it. In this case, if they intended to use the buy before you sell program and it doesn't work out, they decide to sell first and then buy their next home after, it's 1.2%. I will put that in written format, Josh, for you, and then I'll send that over with all the information. We've only seen it actually happen twice through our entire program history, but that's what it looks like. Now, this is pretty great because if your client doesn't utilize our program to get their offer accepted. So let's say they made an offer contingent. They now need to be non-contingent. They get approved for our program and then they move forward. But then somebody comes in and says, hey, I'm going to buy your home in time. They never actually utilized our program to get their offer accepted. So that means that there's no cancellation fee for them if they decide to walk away from all of it. So again, that one very specific scenario, if offer gets accepted using our program and then they sell first, that's the only time that it applies. If your client walks away from the purchase for any reason, there's no cancellation fee. Other than that one scenario, right? So let's say that they get an inspection done in their new home. They find something just critically wrong with it and they don't want to move forward. If they walk away, there's no cancellation fee. Or if they just get cold feet and they say, hey, you know what? I just don't want to buy anymore. I'm happy in the home that I'm in. I'm going to stay here. There's no cancellation.
Timeline wise on the front part, seller wants to proceed. They get approved for the program, the equity unlock. The inspection happens, then the seller looks for the new home. I think that's out of order. The inspection happens after they go under contract on the new home, right?
Correct. So they can start making offers as soon as they have that approval from Homelight. As soon as they get under contract for their next home, we order the inspection on the departing residence.
So equity unlock, pre-approval to go and shop, under contract on the new home, then inspection on the departing resident.
I'd also like to add here too, because sometimes this part of where our equity is actually sent over gets a little bit confusing because some clients will try to use this for EMD or earnest money. This program only unlocks funds when they're closing on their new property. So earnest money will have to come from the client. Homelight's funds unlock as soon as they're closing. So we wire directly to title on behalf of the client once they're closing on their new property.
Good clarification. I think that's all the questions we have that are specific to the program. I will get the updated slide deck from Michael. I will share marketing resources, etc. If anyone on here has a scenario or a seller that they would like to see what the equity unlock would be or just initiate, just reach out to me. I'm going to let Michael go, but we've got enough time that I want to show, because I want to tie in some of the sessions that we've been having here. I want to show you how you might build a targeted list of homeowners in your market that you might reach out to and say, if you've been thinking about downsizing or trading up and you just haven't figured out how to make all of that happen at the same time, we might have a solution for you. So Michael, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. And I'm going to share my screen real quick. So I'm going to show you in PropStream how we could build a targeted list of sellers where this solution may be just you making them aware that this solution exists may be the reason why they actually proceed versus just staying pat.
Hey, Josh.
Now, I'm doing this for two reasons. Number one, I want to just open your eyes to possibilities. Number two, they recently changed PropStream. Some of the function, like the UI is a little bit updated. So I'm still learning it. And I'm going to have Burton come back in December to show us some of that as well. And I don't know who was chatting there, but go ahead.
James here.
Oh, yeah.
I was wondering, he's jumped off. I just wanted to bring up Knock. Is Knock still around, and how does this compare Homelight versus Knock?
It seems like Knock is making a little bit of a comeback. As far as I understand, it costs more.
Oh, I was thinking theirs was like 1.6 instead of 2.4 from what I remember.
I could be wrong.
And they may have changed too.
There also is another one that as soon as it's available in more states, which hopefully will be early in the year, I will have them on as well. It's just that they don't have near the amount of availability that Home does.
Yeah.
They're in like 12 states instead of 47.
Yeah, and it seems like they'll go to 2 million. I don't think Knock went that high. So I want to do a comparison of that. Anyway.
Real quick, I'm choosing the zip code that I live in just for simplicity's sake. I'm going to go to filters here. This is where you'll see that the UI is a lot different than it used to look. So I always, when I'm searching, I always go to MLS status first, and I want not on market because I don't want to solicit anybody who's on the market. This is not perfect and flawless, but it's good to do. And by the way, I should have said this first. If you want to get a free trial with PropStream, josh.com/PS, and the doc that I have all of the resources, software, and a lot of what we've been sharing the last few weeks, where you can get a free trial or whatever, and very transparently, those are my affiliate links. You can go to growwithjosh.com/tech, and that's just a Google doc, growwithjosh.com/tech. So zip code, not on market. I am going to choose owner occupancy, and I'm going to choose owner occupied, right? Because this program isn't really relevant to absentee owners, right? It's just not. So I'm going to choose that. I'm going to choose owner type individual because it's just easier to reach individuals than if it's corporate or a trust. Okay. It's just easier to find their contact information. And I'm going to go to value and equity. We need to have, so they can only unlock 70%. So I'm going to go, we need to have more than 70 or 30% equity, right? Because otherwise we're unlocking nothing. So I'm going to say a minimum estimated equity of 50%. We got 50%. That theoretically means we have 20% of equity unlocked that we could tap into. And I'm jumping around a little bit here, so my apologies. But if you're interested, I'll give you what the set of filters is. Let's say for this specific scenario, I want it to be folks that might be looking to downsize or right size. Okay. And there are ways that we could find the possible trade up folks as well, which time permitting, I'll get into that. But for this, I'm saying they may be ripe for downsizing. Under property details, I'm going to choose a minimum of 2 stories. And I'm going to choose single family or condo or townhouse, because we do have a lot of 2 and 3 story townhomes and condos in my market. You may or may not want to do that. You might just want single family. You know, some of this is, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just figuring out what makes sense to you. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a minimum number of years of ownership. And I'm going to start with 15. And I have now 564 properties that it might make sense for me to make them aware of this buy before you sell program. If I want a smaller set, the thing that I would go to first is probably ownership. I just bump it up. Now I've got half. I put 20 years or plus. I've got 279 instead of whatever that was before, 564. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? Any questions related to that specifically? And I'll put in the chat here the links that I referenced. growwithjosh.com/tech. That's all of the resources, growwithjosh.com/PS. Now, if you're looking for trade up, you might go 1,500 to 2,000 square feet, have owned for 7 to 10 years, and have equity. And there might be some other filtering that you could do in there that would mean that they might be more likely to be thinking about trading up to a bigger home. I'm going to remove the spotlight. Does anyone have any questions, comments related to this, or it doesn't have to be? Patricia, how does PropStream compare to RedX? I've not done a perfect side-by-side comparisons. They're not exactly apples to apples in that RedX, at least, they started as a company providing expired and FSBO data. I know that they've expanded to other data types and so forth, but I'm not equipped to make a side-by-side comparison because I'm not going to say I've never used RedX, but it's probably been 12 or 14 years since I used it. I just like PropStream because I'm familiar with it. You can get a free trial. It's only $97 a month. There are no contracts. You could go in, build a list or build a bunch of lists and pause your subscription until you work through that data and you need more data or you need more lists to work with. But if anybody else has any commentary between the two of them, feel free.
Hey, Josh, on that Smarty software, if we use a code from you, is there a discount off that $149 that he's charging? Because it was $99 a couple of weeks ago.
Email me or text or DM me.
Got it.
The short answer is yes, but he asked me not to publicly share it. So if you're interested, just
I am.
reach
I'll,
out
I'll,
to
I'll
me.
text
Yeah,
you.
reach out to me. I got a hookup for you. Other question: does PropStream provide expired or FSBO? Not FSBO. I don't think. Although PropStream has been making improvements. I'll have to double check with Burton on that. The expired data, there is expired data. I don't know how it compares to My Plus leads. What I personally am finding is there is flaws with all the expired data. No matter who you're using, it's not perfect. My Plus leads, and some of it is user error of the listing agent. Some of it has nothing to do with My Plus leads or RedX or whatever, or Land Voice, or there's any number of Vulcan or PropStream. And there's no perfect solution for that.
But are you going to take the things from the bedroom?
Disregard. If expired is an audience that you're going to go after, you probably are going to have to scrub it on your own a little bit, regardless of what source you use. Okay. Now, the plus with PropStream when it comes to expired or failed listing data is you can layer on some other filters that would decrease the likelihood of getting false positives. In other words, if you pull a list of expired or failed listings and you layer in a filter that the owner has owned it for at least 5 years, let's say, that means it's the same owner. It hasn't sold. Now, it still might be actively listed. For me, I just say, if that comes up, and that has come up for me twice recently, where we've reached out to what we thought was an expired listing, and it was actively listed. And I had 2 very frustrated real estate agents, and I just was honest. Hey, listen, according to our information, it was expired. I am certainly not trying to solicit your active listing. It was an honest mistake. I will delete your seller's information from our database, and I wish you the best with the sale of the property. And one of them legit was, when we reached out, it was expired. It had expired in the morning, and she like relisted it at noon. And I said, I swear to you, and I even manually looked this up, and it was showing as expired. Oh yeah, I didn't make it back active until about noon. Oh yeah, I had a conversation with your seller at 8:30 this morning. Anywho, we are 2 minutes till the top of the hour. I hope this was helpful. I'll post in the chat one more time the Google Drive link. And if you save that link, what I'm going to do is add the slide deck from Michael to that. But if you can't find anything, or you have a question, or you have a scenario, call me, text me, shoot me a DM, comment on the live, send a carrier pigeon, whatever. I'm not hard to find. I'd be happy to run the scenario or answer questions or help you decide what might the next best step be for your seller, your client, or even yourself. Next week, yes, next week, Smarty is coming back on, and we're going to talk FSBO and expireds, and specifically how we're integrating that data with his CRM to create listing opportunities from those 2 buckets. The data source that we're using, I'm using My Plus Leads. It's in my recommended resources doc, growwithjosh.com/tech. But we've got it set up so that data comes in, automations fire, and we just monitor those conversations and reach out when appropriate. So we're going to dig into that next week, and we'll get the replay of this up and available ASAP. As soon as we end it, it'll be available in the group, but I'll also send out the replay to those who are interested as well. I appreciate you all for hanging out on a Wednesday, and hope you have a great rest of the week.